Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm J. Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Reiner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leanne Morgan.
This is Graham Parker. This is GP. And this is why you should never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. I am Lucas Pinkert. I'm an actual Reverend, and here with me,
A man who should have blown his nose before we started recording.
is a man who's full of snot. It is the big man, the Reprobate himself, Big Dan Gibson. What's up?
Nothing, man. We're recording a little earlier today.
We are.
Which I don't know if will be evident during the rest of the interview, the rest of the show.
Likely
but
not.
There's a lot more energy in this one on my half.
That might be the coffee. It might be the Celsius. It might be the cold medicine. There's
Also-
a lot of reasons. that
Also,
it could be.
2 tablets of caffeine.
You took 2
I
caffeine
ingested
tabs?
caffeine tablets.
Did you go under the tongue, or did you just swallow
No, I
them?
swallowed them.
Oh, bro.
That take 2.
So, always under the tongue with the caffeine tabs.
You're assuming they're ones that dissolve and not the gel caps or the
Oh, if it's the gel caps, you got to bite them.
or just swallow it with water.
Have you ever bitten into a gel cap?
Yeah.
Do not recommend.
No.
It is so spicy.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I don't know what they put in those that is the catalyst or the delivery agent that you're not supposed to
Pepper.
ever taste.
Pepper.
Whatever pepper it is, it's terrible. I have a friend who is
If
unable
you-
to swallow pills.
If you
He's got like a throat issue, and so like all I had.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
What?
Patrick's dad, Fairchild.
He can't swallow pills
He can't
because he has
swallow
a throat
pills.
issue.
Yeah, he's got some kind of thing in his throat where like the flap doesn't work whenever he tries to swallow, so he can't do pills. He has to like take liquid Motrin and stuff. Well, I didn't have any of that because I'm
In the words of Mitch Hedberg, that is a weird dude.
so like I can swallow pills like a regular human.
Well, today's show.
So no, so he takes so all I had was his gel cap, and I gave it to him,
gel
and
caps.
he had to eat it. He couldn't like swallow it. He had to like chew it up, and he was like. At first he was like,
so
"That's not bad,"
weird.
and then he talks
Is
about
it
like
a throat thing, or is it he's never really tried?
I don't know,
Because you can swallow water and food.
I mean,
he's alive.
He chokes on
so,
water
so
sometimes.
somehow your throat goes, oh no, it can't come in this form.
Yeah,
Everything else is fine.
and maybe it's psychosomatic, but it doesn't work. Like he'll choke if he tries to swallow a pill. Anyway,
As far as the Reverend and Reprobate is concerned, this is not a throat issue.
He chews up these gel caps, and he starts talking to me about like how hot and spicy they are. And I was like, dude, that sounds terrible.
And they put black
He's
pepper
like, yeah.
in things because it allows your body to absorb it.
So in solidarity, I just took one, and I was like,
true.
it can't be that bad. Then it was that bad.
Well, today's show,
June Colson.
the name of the show so far could be Gel Caps, Death Caps,
Gel caps, death caps,
which gets brought up a little later. You guys will see.
And Robin's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, the June Bug interview.
Poor June. So June Colson's on the show. She is a comedian who is performing nationwide right now. She's got a couple of tours coming up, as well as a feature spot on the LOL. What's the acronym?
GCA.
The LOL GCA coming up. She writes some amazing devotionals. She's very, very funny. Was featured on the Mike Huckabee show.
She also, we didn't talk about this, but
No.
2020 Nashville Clean Comedian Champion.
Oh, was she really? And
This is all before the pandemic.
yeah, she's awesome. She talks to us about the craziness of growing up with a dad named Hotdog, what life in the trailer park was like, and whether or not you should officiate a wedding in front of a burnt-out trailer if the husband is dressed as Batman,
There's so
the
many
wife
details.
is dressed as Catwoman,
Stolen wheelchair and the battery.
and the best
Twice
man
stolen.
and the best man is dressed as Robin, but had to have a wheelchair that was. I mean, there's so much
That's good.
that
In
happens.
the Laugh Support Podcast.
Yep, and check her out on the Laugh Support Podcast with
Michelle Van Dusen.
There you go. All that and next on the Reverend and the Reprobate with June Colson. Hey, so on our airwaves today, Big Sweet Clean Expo is a lady who's just featured on the Huckabee Show this summer. She has rapidly become one of my favorite, not just female comedians, clean comedians, but comedians in general because of her outlook on life. She is sort of in the vein of some of the other just spectacular ladies we've had on with Comedy for the Mamas. It is the fabulous, the beautiful, the very talented Miss June Colson. What's up, June Bug?
Hey, y'all.
How are you?
How you doing?
We're fantastic.
Man, I'm so excited to be here. I
I was just telling Dan that I, like most of my life, like I thought my middle name was Shush, like because I talked all the time and everybody's like June, Shush, June, Shush, and when people want to talk to me, and they invite me to talk, I'm so excited.
Well, we're happy to have you on.
I'm not used to the shush, but I am used to like the turning down the volume.
Oh,
You know,
see,
you can talk, but bring it down.
I get the hand. I get this. I get that from a lot of people. Just get it from
little
you
less
on the show. I get it from you. You'll do two things whenever you want to talk. You'll do this. You'll do this. You'll just put your finger up like.
Yeah.
Or you'll do,
I would like to say
or you'll just
one word.
Put your hand like straight in the space between us. It's fantastic.
June Colson, thanks for being on.
I totally get that because I'm on a podcast with my best friend in comedy, Michelle Van Dusen.
Yes.
Yeah,
and her kind of formula was like, I mean, you keep the comedy, you keep the conversation flowing, and she's taking care of all the, behind the scenes stuff, but she's still part of the podcast. And I'll see like moments where I'm like, oh gosh, I should have let her talk. So I think I'm going to do a segment where it's just June, shut up. And we're going to be like, and now it's time for June, shut up and let Michelle talk. And we'll just throw to her.
See what happens.
How long do you think that segment will go?
Gosh, it'll be so hard. It'll be so hard. But if I sit on my hands, because I talk with my hands, if I sit on my hands, I may be able to be quiet for a few minutes. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll test it out.
Well, we asked you on because we do want to hear from you. We want to talk to you.
Is that your natural? No, I'm just kidding. That's the worst question to ask women that I found out. Is that your natural hair color?
Okay. Here's my thing.
Go. See, it already started. See, I didn't even ask the question. It already started.
No, here's my thing about the blonde. You can ask me if you want to. I don't care. Here's my thing, though. It only applies to blondes.
Right.
Okay, now we live in a society where like people have
girl.
purple hair and orange hair and green hair and whatever. But blondes, they will walk up and go, is that your natural hair color? But nobody's like, oh, hey, Kimmy, were you born violet? Like, no one says that. But it's okay. It's okay to approach me in the mall and be like, and for the record, yes, I was born blonde. Actually, I was born, my hair was completely white, almost translucent, to the point where like my grandmother, when she would cut my hair, she would cut the tips of my ears off. It was really, I'm serious. And I had like no hair till I was in maybe middle school. And my first crush was this boy at the bowling alley. Cause like, I mean, my hair was crazy wild. I wish I had a picture in front of me.
Me too.
And I remember he hung out with me while my grandma bowled like 3 times. We played together. And on the 3rd time, I was like, this boy loves me, And I turned to run off and he goes, hey, dude, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I'm Junebug. And he goes, that's a weird name for a boy.
Oh, no.
And he walked away.
No.
And I was like,
and little
I had no hair. So yes,
crushed.
now I enhance it now. I will say that. But still, if I let it grow out, it's that blondes go what my mom would call dirty dishwater blonde. Yeah, or, and that's not, like, you don't want to be dishwater blonde or dirty blonde.
That's what I am. I think I'm dishwater blonde.
You need to toss some Dawn soap in your hair.
I need a nice spray of some degreaser to really liven me up. Okay, so if Grandma was at the bowling alley every week, what kind of cigarettes did she smoke?
Oh gosh, Grandma had the Virginia Slims, and Papa Floyd had the Camel no filter, where like he would get that little bit of tobacco and he'd spit, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Yeah,
that is pretty cool.
We were a Marlboro Reds family.
That was my household.
Yeah.
Oh, listen, everything I ever had came from Marlboro.
That's
all of our camping gear.
The Marlboro catalog.
We had coolers. You should have seen my prom dress, y'all. I was smoking hot, like.
I like it, pun intended, smoking hot. So did you ever have to buy cigarettes for your parents?
I'm so glad you asked. I had to buy cigarettes yesterday for my dad. Yes, for my dad, Hotdog. Okay, so he had surgery, and I always make him come home with me because he likes hanging at my house. We called my sister Bible School Bobby growing up.
Right.
She's fantastic. She loved the Lord before any of us. But it really intimidates my dad. And so he'll come hang out on my back porch and whatever. So he had surgery, and we were sitting on the back patio, and he goes, hey, Buggy, if I give you some money, will you go get me some Marlboro Reds? I'm out. And I was like, I haven't bought cigarettes in 15 years. Like, it's been 15. I smoked like years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I was like, Daddy, I haven't bought cigarettes in 15 years. Y'all, they're like
I'm telling you,
$8
they're
and
so
50
expensive.
cents a pack.
Right. So when we were growing up, you didn't have to be 18 to buy cigarettes. We're still part of that generation, God's favorites.
Yes.
So
yes.
I remember having to go into the convenience store and buying a carton of Marlboro Reds, and then the guy would lean out from behind the counter, and my grandma would be smoking in the car, right? And she had, and I never understood this, she had bed sheets that covered up the seats of her Lincoln so that the smoke smell wouldn't get on them, as though her like chain smoking 3 packs a day wasn't going to penetrate those bed sheets. And she would just like lean over and wave to the guy. She'd be like, "Hey, Charlie," and he would just wave. He's like, "Hey, Neen." My grandmother's name was Janine, and he would just be like, "Hey, Neen," and then he would hand me just 2 cartons of cigarettes, and I would walk him out to the, walk him out to the car with a pack of bubble gum.
I did not know that this was a thing.
This is huge.
I don't think I've ever bought cigarettes.
And dude, this was such a huge part of all of my summers. And like we would go down.
I did not expect when you asked that question, she'd go, "Oh yeah, let's buy." I went, "Wait, what? This is a thing?"
So did you ever get like the note that said like, "Hey, these cigarettes are for me"? Because that was one thing that we got.
Yeah, I grew up in low-income housing and government housing. I literally lived 2 doors down from a gentleman's club and 2 taverns, and which my dad had like a bar stool named after him there.
Right.
And so like
awesome.
if he needed cigarettes, we could just walk. We could literally walk to the tavern and get them out of the vending machine. Like we would go, I could go in the bar and talk to my dad. So like we could buy cigarettes, we could go into the tavern, like that was not a big deal at all.
Yeah, so my grandmother, it was about a mile walk to the store, and if she didn't want to drive, then my cousins or I would either go drive or we would hop on a 4-wheeler, but very seldom did we walk, and she would give us notes that would be like to the clerk, this is for grandma, and it would have her phone number on it because she just didn't want to get out of the house, and so they'd call her and she'd be like, "Nope, those are my cigarettes, give them to him."
I mean, is that like a secret to
It's Wise County.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
No, I was going to say, like, what's the equivalent to today? Like, we do everything for our kids now. We need to get back to them doing everything for us.
Yeah, totally the opposite of that. Like, instead of like, oh, we can't go do something, Bobby doesn't want to leave the house. This was no, grandma doesn't want to leave the house. Bobby has to go do everything.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wouldn't hate that. I wouldn't hate sending my son and say, "Hey, go pick Dad out a nice Churchill cigar." I'm going to sit here in the AC. You come back.
Okay, so
here's $25.
Yeah, good luck. So how is Hotdog? You said he just had an operation. How's he doing?
He did. So he's doing okay. Tuesday we go back to the cardiologist and find out if they can go ahead with his bypass surgery. So he's had, I would say he had a heart attack. I think his first heart attack was maybe 10 years ago, and he just stayed home. Because that's how a man like Hotdog handles a heart attack. And basically, he barely survived it. His heart actually rerouted itself because he's like tougher than Chuck Norris. And like a week later, he was having a second heart attack and happened to already have a doctor's appointment because, God was hanging on to him. And while he was there, they took his blood pressure and started asking him some questions. And they were like, "Sir, you're having a heart attack right now." So they took him by ambulance over to the hospital. They took him over to the hospital. He had his procedure. My whole life, my dad's been, a smoker, drinker. I mean, he just lived for the party. And he's an alcoholic. And so at the hospital, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but somebody who's an alcoholic, they will actually bring them alcohol in the hospital.
What?
Yeah, they will, because I mean you can't have them going into detox, and they'll regulate the amount that they have. But Dad didn't know that, so he already had his buddy Kenny smuggling beer into his recovery room after his heart attack. So
he had the greatest hospital stay of all time.
Yeah, no joke.
Oh yeah. But they actually will do that. So it
makes sense.
We didn't know that, and so the first time that he went in, when he came out of the hospital, he was just like in detox. He was extremely sick. And so he went straight to the bar and drank until he sent himself right back to the hospital. Like it was crazy. Yeah, it was just craziness. But
that's
he
not
survived
romantic.
that.
That's not romantic drinking.
No, it's not.
No.
Because I like the idea romantically of you're in the hospital
Like Dean Martin?
and a nurse brings you a little shot. It's like, this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But if you're constantly going back and breaking, that's not good.
Yeah, your projection of this is like Dean Martin had a heart attack at the Friars roast,
Yeah,
and
the
there's
nurse
like some
brings-
little
Yes,
nurse
yes.
that brings a
Brings
tray
a shot,
in.
you'll give it a
No.
little tap.
No, June's talking
Good
about
job.
real life issues, Dan.
I know.
Yes.
Okay,
Well,
back to
listen.
it.
Okay, so in front of the business, I owned a business for about 15 years, and
Okay.
in front of the business on the highway in front of our store, there was a big Budweiser billboard out there.
Mhm.
And my sister would be like, she would be concerned about me going by to visit my dad when I had the kids with me, because they'd be like, well, what if his buddies are drunk? What if they're, whatever? And I would tell my sister, I'm like, I need the contrast between the Budweiser billboard that's in front of my business, right? There's so many bees in my mouth right now. The Budweiser billboard in front of my business, because it was women in bikinis in a boat. And I'm like, that's not what real professional drinkers look like, baby. It's not the ladies in the bikinis.
Yeah.
Let me refer you to Hotdog and his buddies out here playing cornhole, where one of them just fell off their motorcycle in the front yard of the trailer. Like, that's what real pros look like. This is where it can lead,
Yeah.
That is an
it-
important contrast to make.
Yeah, they do a really good job marketing their
Yeah.
and not showing the reality, because otherwise it's not good.
Well,
just like cigarettes.
I was gonna say, but like cigarettes have had that sort of that competition in advertising, where there's the the anti-tobacco campaigns that show the lady with the stoma box, and she's like, I've ruined my whatever. I don't want to make fun of people.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah, don't do that.
This is this terrible thing, right? Where all of that happens, and then you see with like the alcohol campaigns, like nobody is showing. The
No.
poor guy, they'll just show the crashed up cars, and they'll be like, give you statistics instead of being like, no, this is Uncle Ed. He's fat and diabetic, and most of that is due to his consumption of
He's
Coors Light.
losing his battle.
Yeah,
Yes.
Coors Light is light because of the color, not the calories, folks. That's
Yeah.
all that means. So
Yeah. But
All
yeah, so that all leads to the fact that like now he has to have another heart procedure.
Oh mercy.
And he had cancer before, and so he had to have a small procedure the other day to get him prepared so that we can go forward with the heart procedure. And so that's where we are. We just, hanging out on the back porch, chilling out with my daddy, waiting for the next round. So
Well, at least you're getting some good father-daughter time.
oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
good stuff.
Do you have a wraparound porch?
No, so I live on the ridge above a creek area. And so my backyard
Isn't it
has a
pronounced
swimming
crick?
pool, a crick.
Yeah, that's the correct pronunciation in Kentucky.
Crick.
I don't know. I call it the creek. What do y'all call it?
Creek. too.
Yeah, we just call
Really,
it
I
the
just
creek.
heard it one time referred to as a crick.
And,
It's the
and now you
creek,
think that
yeah.
that's all people from Kentucky sound like they're from the Blue Mountains? Like they're just all the blue people?
Playing with
Yeah,
crawdads
that's
in the crick. I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
Oh, you're fine. So no, I was just trying to describe my amazing backyard. That's fine.
It sounds
No,
great.
so I have a swimming pool back there in a pool house, and it's covered, and it has a like patio furniture and all that. And my dad he loves to go back there and just sit and chill out. Like he'll get a
awesome.
walking stick sometimes and go down and go mushroom hunting. Do y'all know anything about that, mushroom hunting?
So we've
I
heard
know
a
the
little bit
hobbits.
about it from another podcast that we listened to, where one of the ladies is a forager. And
Yes.
and so she goes out and she says, what you're supposed to do is just like find a mushroom, and then you kind of nibble on it a little bit, and if it makes you sick when you nibble on it, then that's not
That
a good
sounds like a
mushroom.
terrible idea.
That's literally
That's a really bad idea, considering we have Google and you can
Yeah.
basically look up anything and find out what
I
you
think
can or
Alana's
cannot
a little
eat
more
from.
adventurous than just looking it up on Google.
Show up in heaven, I was just trying the death caps. I didn't know.
Yeah. Oh, my first argument with my husband, because he had never, like, Indiana is where I was born, and then I moved to Kentucky because my dad worked for General Motors, the Corvette plant, and we were transferred with General Motors. And everybody in Indiana, the area I grew up in, you would go mushroom hunting. And my first argument with my husband before we got married was I had made a comment about mushroom hunting, and he goes, "What?" and his whole family deer hunts and turkey and duck and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I said, and he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Well, you get this little gun and you sneak up on them and you shoot them." And he's like, "Oh, you're so whatever." So he's like, "She's so stupid." So then he goes to Indiana with me, and the topic after dinner, everybody's talking about mushroom hunting, and he looks at me so mad. And I'm like, "What?" And he thought I had my whole family in on some rude joke that was making fun of him for being stupid. And he finally stood up and he goes, "I'm not dumb. I know you don't hunt mushrooms." And my family's like, "What? What just happened?" And I was like, "Oh, babe, I mean, not with a little gun, but it's real. I promise it's real." Like, that was our very first fight because I'm a smart aleck and I forget that I'm say something stupid and I let it go on way too long.
That is a great example of just a throwaway joke that comes back to haunt you later. That happens to me all the time. I'm with you.
Most of my arguments with my wife come from something stupid that I said to her or somebody else.
Yeah, my wife will say, "You said this." I go, "Why would I say that?
That doesn't make any sense. Yep. Okay, so
hold on. I'm not done with mushrooms.
Go ahead.
I'm with you.
Okay,
Let's go. Let's go down this road.
Let's go on a journey together. Here we go.
I'll
go
ahead.
first.
Yeah, you put the hand up to stop. You shushed me. Why don't you go ahead and talk to June?
June, how do you tell when the mushroom is good? When it's a good one, safe to consume, safe to collect?
You nibble on the corner. If it makes you sick, don't do it.
But is that your method?
I don't. You know what my method was? I have attention deficit. So my grandma and my grandpa and my dad would take me to the woods with them. I think sometimes they were just hoping I would wander away. I'm not sure, but I was dancing around and jumping on logs and probably crushing the good mushrooms. So they just let me go. But my dad would be the one that would like pick them, and they would cook them up and fry them and whatever. So I was never good at mushroom hunting. I just didn't have the attention span for it. So I would Google. That's what I would recommend.
So their approach was, let's bring June mushroom hunting because it's the only thing she won't scare away.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Like my grandpa would scream at me when we would go fishing because he swore that like the sound of my voice ran all the fish away. I don't know.
I dropped it again.
There's something that you've just kind of mentioned in passing. I'm very curious about. You said you owned a business for 15 years. What did you do before you went like full time into comedy and taking care of Hotdog?
Well, I've done a little bit of everything, but my company was a uniform company. I sold gear to police and fire and EMS.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah. And I sold that in 2011.
Okay.
There's a local businessman that retired from a major manufacturer here who had some extra cash and wanted to buy up small businesses like mine. And I said, "Thank you very much." And
for sure.
So when I sold the company, I had a little change in my pocket and I had a moment with God where I was like, okay, what do I do next? Because before that I worked in radio and I had worked with kids in low income housing and government housing in the same areas that I grew up.
What kind of radio show did you put on with the kids?
Do what?
I said, what kind of radio show did you do with these kids?
Well, I did do a radio show with the kids, but that would have been fantastic because they were from, like I said, the neighborhoods I grew up in. So we could have had some pretty interesting conversations and content. But so I was like, well, I really enjoyed radio and I really enjoyed working with the kids. And then I ended up actually going to work at an elementary school where my kid works. And I spent 7 years working with kids with special needs, mainly kids with autism. But anyway, it was 2017 and I was in church and the Holy Spirit was like, "Hey, got a plan for you." And all I heard in my spirit was, "I want you to write." And writing has been the thing that I've done my whole life. It's kind of my escape, I make a lot of jokes about my childhood, but I really did grow up in low income housing and government housing with a dad who's an alcoholic and a mom who was emotionally unstable. Her mother was bipolar and horribly abusive. And so my mom got a lot of her parenting skills from her mother. And then dad was gone. So she was trying to raise 3 kids. Just in the last few years, I gained a new sister through 23andMe. Hallelujah. That's been fun too.
We know all about NPEs.
Yeah, well, I saw an episode. I saw your episode
Mhm.
about that, and my new sister, she's been with us 3 years now. Phenomenal, amazing person. Really wild how someone can just be out there and then be so much like you. And so she mushroom hunts, y'all. She mushroom hunts.
What?
If that tells you anything.
So
Yes,
it's in
she
the
has.
genes.
Yeah, she has a birthmark in the same spot that I have a birthmark. My sister, when my sister smiles, she has a dimple on one side and not the other. And her and Leslie both have the same like little dimple. It's
Wow.
craziness. Yeah. But
What kind of cigarettes does she smoke?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Camel no filters.
Yeah, there you go. She thought it was cool too to go.
She thought spitting that tobacco was awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Holy Spirit was like, I want you to write. And I remember being just there's a few times in my life where it truly was a moment where God was undeniably speaking to me
Yeah.
in a way that you just can't ignore. And then I spent a year going like, write what? What am I writing? What am I writing? And then finally one day I was driving to work and he said, it's comedy, June. It's always been comedy. That's how your whole family has functioned, is through comedy. But the thing was, when I was growing up, comedy was a weapon for me. I use that to deal with people, because I mean, there are times that like my brother, who's 6'4", was probably 250. We were sharing the same pair of jeans, and I would try my best to be a chameleon and figure out how to like blend and not stand out as the poor kid, and those kind of things. And so guys could be really cruel, and I learned real quick a few comebacks and a few jokes about specific anatomy, right? And then they didn't want to mess with me, and then I was funny.
That's a quick way
and
to
then I
shut
was
a guy
cool,
down.
yeah. And so so I'd use comedy as a weapon my whole childhood, and then God was like, I want you to use it as a tool now.
But you intended for evil, I intend for good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Genesis.
That's not in Genesis. That is in either hesitations or second
Love.
opinions, the way that you just used it. So that's awesome. So God has used this, thing, like you said, that you weaponized, sort of like a coping mechanism in a way, and been able to turn it into to a career for you. So how did you get your start in comedy? Because that is one of the most fascinating things as we've interviewed other comedians. Like everybody's,
other than your dad's being named Hotdog.
Which
is a good way to start.
Everybody's sort of like foray into it has been vastly different, and everybody starts the same way, and they're like, well, it's not the typical way. But there is no typical way.
Yeah, there is no typical way. You're right.
Everybody's entrance into it seems to be so different.
Typical way.
Thank you for going atypical. Very
welcome.
nice.
You're welcome.
I just want to acknowledge that joke.
You what? Thank you.
All right. We'll give the floor back to the professional comedian.
A good joke. Let's move on.
No, like that literally was like the Holy Spirit spoke to me and was like, dude, you're doing comedy. And then it was like coming out of the closet to people. I was like, I'm not telling anybody this.
Right.
What are we talking about? And I mean, it took me months to even like tell my husband. And then I was like, well, God, how do I do this? I don't know anybody who does this. And speaking of Google, the Holy Spirit was like, how about Google it? How about Google Christian comedians? And I did. And I saw that there was an association.
Right.
And I was like, oh, I bet they have a conference sometime. But then I'm like, well, God, I'm sure it's expensive. I'm sure it's far away. And so I Google, and it was in Nashville, which is an hour from my house. And it was on the weekend of my birthday.
Oh, nice.
Oh, too bad.
I know. And I was like, oh,
too bad.
Yeah,
Too bad you couldn't.
Darn
Oh,
it.
shucks.
So it ruined it absolutely ruined my birthday. But so I was like, okay, God, I'll go and I'll meet these Christian comedians. And that'll be that, right? I was like obedient. I did what he told me to, and I'd be done with it. And I got there, and I was blown away at the different ways that people were using humor to reach the hearts of people, and seeing that there were ventriloquists, and there were speakers, and they were straight up stand-up comedians, and there were people doing church shows and all of these things. And I tried to hide in the background. I was just like, I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm just going to kind of observe and get out of here. But, when God has a plan for you, he starts putting people in your path right away. And no matter how much I tried to hide in the corner, someone was drawing me out. Someone was speaking to me. Someone was investing in me, you know. And I remember coming home from Nashville and literally just weeping all the way home because I am not somebody who is uber super self-confident. I've never felt like I'm the smartest person in the world or the fastest or the prettiest or the funniest or anything, you know. And I've always felt like my brain, it never stops. I dream 9 to 12 dreams a night. Like I constantly dream
9 to 12.
Yeah, 9
Wow.
to 12. Yeah. I started documenting my dreams a couple of years ago.
Oh, that sounds
I was
exhausting.
about to ask that. Do you document it? 'Cause that's a lot.
Yeah. I started
You wake up, you
documenting
go,
them, and
"Oh,
I
man."
didn't realize I dreamed that many dreams
Yeah, no
until
kidding.
I had a friend who was like, because I wake up and I remember them. Like literally last night, I dreamed that my son had a pack of dogs with him that were being obedient to him, and he was, it was just whatever. But anyway, I wake up and it is as clear. And if I don't write it down or say it as soon as I wake up, I'll forget it later on and I might have it come back to me. But like, I know, like I've always felt like the weird person in the room. Like I can't focus and, you know, I am the squirrel girl. And suddenly I was in a room with a bunch of people and I found like 5 or 6 people who seemed like their brains were wired like mine and God was using them. And I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. And so I literally got home and I just wept. I just cried, you know, and I'm like, okay, maybe you can use this weird, freaky girl. And one of my first arguments with him was like, I'm not a biblical scholar. I can't. My husband says that when I tell a Bible story, when I'm like excited about a story I read in the Bible and I'm like, dude, okay, so this donkey and, you know, whatever, he's like, you sound kind of like Drunk History. Y'all ever see that?
Oh, yeah. I love that show.
That's me. When I tell a Bible story, I'm like Drunk History. I'm like, okay, so the donkey,
like
and
the
he's
Bible,
like, yo,
but
what
funnier.
are you doing?
That's
But
That's
so that's what
awesome.
happened. I go to the CCA,
So
I meet these amazing people, and then God starts putting people like the amazing Jeff Allen in my path. He's like, hey, I'm having a writers group at my house. Anybody near Nashville wants to come. And I remember reaching out to Jeff and I'm like, look, this is who I am. This is where I'm at. I literally would have nothing to offer this group. But if I could sit in the back, I'll listen, I'll observe. And he's like, no, this is exactly what I'm trying to do. And he was in that phase where he'd been doing comedy by himself for so long. And he wanted to invest in people who were coming up. He wanted, he said it kind of energized him. And sometimes we wouldn't even write comedy. We would just sit around the table and be together, talk about different people's lives and what's going on. And then from there, Shonda Pierce came into my life, and
she's terrible.
Oh, she's awful. I don't know if
she's
you've
the
heard of her, but
worst.
she's pretty messed up. But no, she's fantastic. She is absolutely fantastic,
Yeah,
She's wonderful.
and
She's
And
a
so-
jewel in the crown of comedy.
She really is. She is
Yeah.
for sure.
Well, so you mentioned Jeff Allen, who also, you know, veteran of comedy. How long has it's been 30 years in comedy? I remember what he told us. 30 or
I think he might have
40?
just hit his 4th decade of doing comedy.
Mm-hmm.
and
The dude's so prolific too.
Yeah,
like
he's
his
awesome.
his stuff from 35 years ago that still just like randomly pops up,
Yeah.
or as him and his team are putting it out there, it's still really good. It's just
Yeah.
less bitter. Like that's really the only difference is as he's gotten older, he's gotten less bitter, but no less upset about the way that things are.
Yeah, for sure.
fussy
for
about it.
sure.
Oh, he's still so fussy,
I love
but it's
fussy
so great.
people. I'm definitely fussy. Well, I was. This is a great segue into, you know, Jeff Allen helping people come up with the writing retreat or whatever you call it, regular writing sessions. You have a podcast, Laugh Support, with Michelle Van Dusen. Did I pronounce the last name correctly?
Yes, Michelle Van Dusen. I used her last name as a villain in one of my comedies.
I was gonna say
very
that's
sounds
what she
villainous.
sounds like. Like she sounds like it's Dr. Doom and Morgan Le Fay, and there's Michelle Van Dusen, and they're gonna be the hero or the villains that take out the Fantastic Four this week.
Yeah, what's their group name?
Those three?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll come up with it while you do
Okay.
this.
What-
I'll plug it into a villain name.
Okay, first one that has
creator.
one buzz in.
Okay, got it.
But helping people on their way up. Your podcast focuses on the support for comedians coming up and the support they've received. Is that a good way to sum it up? So how'd you guys start that?
Well, we're on the Hot Breath Comedy Network. That's from a comedian named Joel Byers. He's been doing Hot Breath for years. He mainly interviews secular comedians, and we became friends with him actually during the COVID shutdowns when all that was going on. And we would write together every morning for 10 minutes. It was called Write 10. So at 10 a.m. for 10 minutes, we would just do a random word and write a joke, great. And just to kind of be doing something when everybody was doing nothing, you know. And so as we kind of come out of that, he was adding some things to his platform, and he wanted someone doing something clean. And so he approached myself and Michelle and was like, hey, would you guys be interested in doing a clean comedy podcast? And so Michelle and I really kind of brainstormed, and I was like, podcasts are not easy, and it's time consuming. And if it's not something that we're passionate about, we're probably not going to do it, you know? Mm-hmm. So what would we want to talk about? And Michelle, the first time that I went on stage at the CCA, I had gone 1 year, and I promised God next year I will come, because they used to do these little kind of breakouts where you could go on stage and then veterans would give you a little bit of critique. And I'm like, I'm going to do this next year. God, I promise I'll do that for you. And I get there, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to be doing this the next day. I've got like 10 pages of material, and I'm like pacing around in the lobby, and this little bitty lady, because I'm like 5'10", and Michelle's like 4 nothing. Mm-hmm. And this little bitty lady's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm going to try and do this thing tomorrow. And she goes, well, what do you got? Sit down, show me what you got. You know, and that was like how she became my friend. And she helped me edit it and get something that I felt like, okay, I can go up here tomorrow and do this. And so we decided that we wanted to know, well, who did that for other comedians, or did anybody do that? Were there times that they didn't have anyone, or, you know? And it's been interesting because there have been some comedians who are like, I was the only clean comedian in LA, and I didn't know anybody else was Christians. I had to kind of keep it on the down low, and I would go home by myself and, you know, whatever. And then other people, it's really surprising who was in their life from the start, or how different people came along their pathway. And one thing that I noticed was there, a lot like my story, 7 or 8 years before God said, hey, June, I want you to do this, there were a couple of women in my church group who were like, you got to do comedy. You're so funny, you know. But that was also kind of how I protected myself in a group of women, because I didn't trust them. And so I would make jokes.
I do the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's also a defense mechanism for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so she was my laugh support. And then I find out that a lot of comedians, a lot of artists, someone saw it in them, and God was planting a seed with just a few words long before they could see it in themselves, long before, you know, he sent them on that path. So that's how we ended up in this laugh support. Jeff has been on there, and you know, he's got like crazy names of people that he's been around in his lifetime and career. And I just love hearing some of his stories. He's got Jim Carrey stories that, you know, are fantastic. Or he'll be like, well, yeah, Rosie O'Donnell was like, hey, go do this, you know, whatever. And I'm like, he just, what?
It's so wild.
Seinfeld too.
Yeah. Seinfeld told him, was like talking to him whenever they were in line to get their checks one day, and was like, told him to quit being so angry about everything and quit being miserable.
That's
I think
really
is what
funny
it was.
From him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I was like, what in the world? He's like, yeah, it really changed my perspective on things. I was like, yeah, if Jerry Seinfeld came up to me and told me to stop being miserable, that would change my perspective on things too.
I would tell you, Jerry Seinfeld, we interviewed Sylvia Traymore Morrison. You guys have to look her up. She was the very first African-American female impressionist, like ever, all time. She hosted the roast of Muhammad Ali. She is one of the kindest, most humble, and coolest women that I've ever met. But she said Jerry Seinfeld was the first to put her on stage. Was really? Jerry. That's awesome. And her and Robin Williams grew up. Basically, they started doing comedy together at the same time, and that was like her comedy brother when she first got started. And her story is really phenomenal.
Yeah, she'd be really interesting to have on.
Well, so you guys started the podcast to tell stories and share of coming up and people who've supported different comedians, right? What other shows do you think, or what other methods are there available right now for comedians who are wanting to, or people who are wanting to become comedians, to get exposure and to learn and get advice from veteran comedians and get that support?
Yeah. Gosh, what a great question. A lot of people do kind of
got
feel
one.
like, well, I would hear, you did a good question. Look at you.
He normally gets that. He normally gets the good question. I normally get, yeah, I guess tigers are cool. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was definitely like that because I'm like, I don't live in Bowling Green. There's not a big comedy scene. One thing you have to do is you got to be willing to go where people are at doing what you want to do.
There's just scenery.
Mm-hmm.
Scenery, no, that's a bad joke. Go ahead.
No, just keep going.
So-
We're just going to feed
So
you more
yeah,
rope.
Jeff's house is an hour and a half from my house. I'm not a Nashville comic. I drive it whenever we're writing. I drive an hour and a half to get there, and I drive it out. It's 3 hours round trip for me to go and set for 2 hours in a room full of comedians. And I just started looking at where are people doing what I want to do. And there's a lot of online comedy writers groups. There's Christian comedians like Robert G. Lee. I don't know if you guys have interviewed Robert or not, but he's got a Tuesday night writers group that I'm in, and I run stuff online with him. Because I don't necessarily, people are like, you got to do open mics, and you got to get on stage, and everybody has different paths and how they work things out. Literally, most all of my material I've practiced online with other comedians in a setting where we're truly like structured, organized, working a set, then giving each other feedback. And then I take it to the stage.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will sit for 4.5 hours at some dive bar and listen to 97 sex jokes from, and then you get up with a clean bit or whatever, and nobody cares. And then the feedback you're going to get's not that solid. Mm-hmm. And so I just find people that I trust to do that. So, but I would say, seek out, find some people close to you that are doing what you want to do. And you'd be surprised how many comedians are receptive. In my time, I've had a few people reach out to me and been like, hey, would you do a Zoom call with me? I just have a few questions. And I'm more than honored and happy to do that. I don't look at myself as anybody who really feels like I know much of anything. I'm learning every single day. But what I have kind of figured out, I'm happy to share with somebody. So I just say, seek out who's, doing what you want to do. And, there's going to be if you go straight after the top of the celebrities, you're going to, not likely get a response or
Tom
it's going
Segura
to be
won't answer my emails.
Yeah, right. You can't get upset about that.
Yeah.
But maybe find somebody mid-level, maybe find somebody that you can send a message to and say, hey, where do you, or someone who's doing a similar style to what you want to do, and shoot them a message and have a conversation. That's what helped me, was just finding people who were willing to let me slip into their circle a little bit and just learn from them, but be really willing to learn. This is one of the things that, I took a class, I took Rick Roberts, in Nashville. He has the School of Laughs, and that connected me with other comedians. And some people will be like, oh, you can't teach how to be funny, but I definitely think you can learn how to do better in your craft.
Right.
I think some really funny people can be hilarious if they figure out the formula, and so I also say, take a class. There are some of the top comedians right now. Brian Bates and Johnny W. Are a couple of Nashville comedians, and Brian now travels with Leanne Morgan, and there's some of the top comedians in Nashville, and Brian and Johnny both were taking Rick's class, and they now write together as a group. So I don't know, the argument about like you can't teach it. Well, even if you don't think someone can teach you how to be funny, well, you're at least going to get connected with other comedians that are doing what you're doing.
That's a ridiculous argument. You can't learn. This is the one thing you can't learn.
You can't learn how to be. There is something to like having a natural talent to do anything, though, whether it's music or comedy or whatever.
For the culinary arts, you just have always had a passion for it. That's fine.
Right.
You can still learn how to cook.
If you really want to learn how to do something, especially if it's something that you like are passionate about, there is a way to do it. And now I think with the internet and stuff that the
internet and stuff.
Yeah, the internet and stuff. The internet, like YouTube
Just
in
say
particular.
The internet.
Yeah, with like YouTube in particular and online courses.
You gotta hear it.
Like there's
it's
also
bugging me.
Thanks, buddy. there's very little excuse for us not to learn how to do something that we want to know how to do.
Yeah. I feel like this is about to turn into a lecture to me.
It's not at all.
Okay.
I'll save that for later. So the difficulty I think in learning a lot of those things though is that we easily get discouraged, right? And so I'm wondering, and I've been contemplating this question, like how the best way is to ask it, because especially when we look at particularly female comedians, we see that there is this like frustration in trying to break through and to hit the main stage. And then like if you were to look, I'm thinking more specifically about Leslie Jones and Tiffany Haddish. And Leslie Jones came up under Cat Williams and felt like she had to stop working with him and didn't get her big break until she was in her 40s when she stopped working with Cat, because she felt like while he helped her out a bunch, he was also impeding her progress. Whereas Tiffany Haddish has just like blown up, and she worked with Kevin Hart, and Kevin was good about like putting her up in front of people. So there's all these different things like when you're an up and coming comedian, especially as you're learning the craft, that can be discouraging. How do you prevent that from renting too much space in your head? And you use a lot of that in your comedy. How do you turn it into something that's positive and funny when it can be at times something that's really like crushing to you?
Wow, that is an absolutely excellent, phenomenal, just over the top great question.
Yes,
that you just asked.
I got three good.
I think that as a clean comedian, it can be difficult because you see the girls getting the stage time in comedy clubs that as long as you'll show your boobs. Sorry if you can't say
that's
that
fine.
on here.
Yeah,
get tatas.
It's the international sign for women.
And not that that's the only way that some of the comedians who aren't necessarily clean. I mean, they are good, hard-working women that are getting there, but their material is, I've sat there and heard 3 women in a row on the same night in a showcase basically say the exact same thing, and it is this, I've got to act a certain way and say certain things and pander to the male population and all of that, and I'm like, and some of it's not even that funny, right. I'll at least give it to you if you're funny and you wrote that, then that's great. But if it's just pandering, whatever, I sit there and go, I work so hard and I pay so much attention to the craft that it can be frustrating, but at the same time, like I'm so rooted in who sent me and who I'm to honor. And, not long ago, I had this great conversation with God about like, what is success, and we look at this, image of what the world says, right? And the world says that success is 1 million likes and 1 million follows and 1 million this and 1 million that, and I serve a God who 1 is important to him. We hear that he leaves the 99 for 1, and the, Father, Son, Holy Spirit are 3 in 1, and he sent his one and only Son. And if it means that what I'm doing only affects 1, that's good enough. And as long as I'm doing it for the 1, it'll be okay, And so I don't necessarily, because the devil is in comparison. Mm-hmm. You sit and you look at like other people's paths, and as we just talked about, everybody's path is different. There is no formula to this game. And it really is, I think, a combination for folks who don't have faith. It's a combination of just dumb luck and hard work, And for someone like me, I'm not necessarily going to rest on whether the world says I'm successful or not. And so I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it can be a frustrating world. It definitely is a world that, the men are running most of the shows, and you'll see like, 5 of the same looking people on a show. And I'm like, 1 girl, could you use 1 girl? So, but I mean, just the other day, I'm on a booking site where it actually tells you who got the job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and some comedians can't handle that. Like some are like, I don't want to see who beat me.
I would love that.
Yeah, so I'm like literally like Rick Roberts is one that beat me on one of them, and I'm like, hey, I can deal with that. He taught me. He's fantastic. But I've seen where like certain shows, it's been somebody who's a really dirty guy, someone who's just real dirty. And I'm like, well, obviously that's what they're looking for. But I try not to get too tore up about comparing myself to that particular person. I got to lean on that. God will open the doors that you're supposed to go through, and he'll close the ones. And I think as Christians, the problem is we usually only go, hallelujah, God gave me this huge opportunity. And we never go, hallelujah, God shut the door.
Yeah.
I know he's protected me from places. If I had used that weapon that I had, if I went into comedy when I was 18 or 19 years old, and the only value I had ever been shown, I wasn't smart, I was tall, I had long legs, and I was blonde. And I would have probably compromised myself.
Yeah.
To have that kind of attention, because I was just trying to find a place in the world. And then I have a mentor. I actually have a mentor now,
Michael
TC
W. Smith.
Stallings. You guys should have TC on your show.
I'm adding him to the list right now.
Yeah, TC Stallings. He was the star of War Room, and he's in My Brother's Keeper, and he just was in a movie called No Vacancy, which he did a fantastic job in. But TC has this thing called the Uncompromised Christian Actor.
He's got an incredible jawline.
Oh my gosh, he's ridiculously
Holy
buff.
smokes.
Like, he's just the toughest dude.
Nah, I'm emasculated. We can't have him on.
Nope.
Never mind. Sorry,
But
TC.
I mean, he is all about
Take some estrogen and some CBD, and we can talk.
But yeah, he is all about being uncompromised in your craft and knowing who you're supposed to answer to. So
Yeah.
I figure he'll get me where I need to go. And if I don't get there, I probably wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. So
That's good. Well,
You brought up one of the things I think that is kind of a trope, and I'll reference one of Danley's favorite shows, South Park, which is, I think, for a lot of people within, I think, sort of the pastoral world, it is a guilty pleasure for a lot of folks, as we've talked about, because of their cultural commentary. Like, I would never advocate that people need to watch the show,
right.
but
it's intellectually honest.
I was going to say,
for it.
like, the clips that come out of it are so intellectually honest. And when there was an episode a few years back, and there was a clip that got sent to me over and over again about one of the characters portraying female comedians. And basically, like, all he did was he had this woman up there, and or this other girl that he went to school with, and he was like, now quick. And then he made a reference to, like, her privates, and he was like, if you say that, everybody will laugh. She's like, no, I don't want to. And so she says it after like nobody thinks she's funny. She references her genitals, and all of a sudden, the crowd erupts, and he's just like, see, I'm trying to empower
pandering.
Yeah, he's like, I'm trying to empower women, and she's like, this is not empowering, this is dumb. One of the things I think is so unique about your voice in the comedy world is that you are using it to not just create these awesome one night experiences whenever you're out doing your comedy on the road, but also like the devotions and things that you've done. And we've got some friends, Carrie Pomeroli, Kristen Weber, who have also done this, kind of thing. They've written some books, but your devotions and stuff that you put out online are really cool that you do. So how are you using that and like your comedy as a way to speak into people's lives in that way? And why do you think that it has given you such a unique voice?
I'll tell you the devotional thing. I'm about to talk about that at the LOL GCA. During the shutdown, I was at Shonda's farm with Bone Hampton, a comedian that's traveled with Shonda for years and years. And we were talking about how everybody was doing all of these things online while no one was doing anything. And I told Bone, I said, man, I don't feel funny right now. I see my friend Rhonda's doing Talk is Cheap, and people are having a great time on that show. And Marlo is having coffee chats at the cubbyhole. And Bone said, was God told you to do anything? Like that simple. And I said, no. And he said, then don't. He said, you'll know.
Yeah.
Wait for him to talk to you.
Just stay prepared. It was kind of what he was saying. Stay vigilant, but just
Yeah.
Take
He was
care
like,
of your
just don't
family
run out and do something because you see other people doing something and you feel like I got to do something. And then, over the next year, I was with different comedians talking about different things. And the thing is that my childhood, on stage, I'll tell a little bit about it. And my dad, I have a phenomenal relationship with my dad. And my mom just passed away in May, and I had a phenomenal relationship with my mom. And it was all about healing and forgiveness. And, because they were not the best parents in the world. I had a lot of trauma and a lot of stuff because of their sin-filled lives when I was a kid. But I was so close to my parents, especially my mom before she passed away. And my dad and I have this great relationship. Most of my material is about him. Literally, Jeff Allen wanted a picture with my dad when I did a show here in Bowling Green with Jeff. I opened for him at the Capitol Arts Theater. And Jeff was like, "Is Hotdog here?" He was so excited about him. But, I said, I feel like, especially if I'm doing church shows, that I can't get real deep into some of the stuff that I want people to know God has brought me through. And so just one day the Lord was like, "Okay, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to tell you what we're going to talk about when we're going to talk about it. But you're going to go live, and this is what I want you to do." So I kept praying. I was like, "God, that's not enough. I need more," and basically he just said, "You're going to talk about where you were, what you've been through, and where you are now."
And mushrooms.
And that say again.
And mushrooms.
And mushrooms. And mushrooms. But the thing is that it sounds like I'm going to talk about something horrible, how I handled it and how wonderful it is on the other side. But sometimes I'm like, I'm still in it. Where I am now is still in it. It's still in the battle. But, I've been able to talk about my husband and I separated in 2011. And if it wasn't for God, we'd be a statistic, 50% of the country. I've lost 2 children. I grew up where I told you guys I grew up, and I've shared about, when you have parents who aren't paying attention and you're a little girl around a lot of not good men, those men will pay attention that your parents weren't. And I've had a lot of women reach out after that conversation, so that for me, it's not about the comedy. Of course, if I'm talking about it, it's going to have probably some weird, twisted, goofy direction that it goes. But at the same time, it was like, he released me to just share some things that might mean something to somebody, I talked about how much I rejected church and Christians and this, anger about how hypocritical and how they think they're this and how they think they're that. And God, I'm not going to their church because they look down on everybody and, all this. And they, they think they're better than everyone. And the Holy Spirit was like, "Sounds to me like you're going to fit right in."
Oh, man.
And I'm like, I know. And I love the way he talks to me because he just knows how to say it in a sarcastic, funny, whatever pierces my heart. And then I realized, oh, wow, I've become the thing to try to protect myself that I'm claiming that they are, So he's just like, go where I tell you to go and trust me and know that the person beside you is just as messed up as you are. And they're at least trying, man. They're at least setting and doing what I've asked them to do. And then he gave me this, and for the record, your pastor up there is not a robot. He is going to fail you. And if you are only there to follow where a preacher goes or because your best friend goes to that church, they're going to fail you. I won't. They will. Be ready to have some grace for them the way I have grace for you, And so I was like, fine. And I thought, well, I'll sit here, for a little while. And I think the church I'm at now, I've been there for probably 15 years now.
Wow.
And I just kept going, but he worked through a lot of stuff in my heart. Even like I said before, like the women's group, when he was like, "Okay, now you're going to a women's group," I was like nails on the wall going into that classroom. I'm like, "No, not the ladies." Ah! And then that's where they started planting seeds.
That is a
of
terrifying
like, "Oh my gosh,
room."
you're so funny. You should do comedy."
Yeah.
Because I went where he said to go. So.
Well, that's awesome. I got to say, I've been on a similar journey of not wanting to get back involved with church because
not the women's group.
A history. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I've been told they were worried you were coming to the women's group. They were like,
there was fear. Yeah, there was fear associated with that for sure.
I mean, without speaking out of turn, I think both of us would have that same reaction if you have to go to the women's group today. Oh no, terror.
It depends.
It's scary.
If it's our senior ladies, I'm in. Not a problem. I will waltz into that room, and that is going to be the most protected area for me in this entire church.
I am not saying anything negative about the ladies at this church, just for the record.
Yep.
I am saying I'm terrified of women.
Yeah, that's smart. That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because of their proven history of thwarting my efforts. Well, check out
Yeah, go ahead.
LOCA.
LOL.
We're going to have to edit this part.
Nope. This
Dang
is
it.
staying in.
Check out LOL BC GC.
Make sure
You're
to check
so
out the
close.
LOL GCA if you don't catch June whenever
Unbelievable.
she's there. Maybe they'll have it later, and by that time, Danley will know what it is.
And laugh support with Michelle Van Dusen.
Yeah.
Who is the Susie Meyerson to your marvelous Miss Maisel, if I may?
Oh.
How is that reference?
Well, almost height-wise, that's correct. That's
Oh, wow.
almost correct.
The situation you described, where the short little lady comes and says, "Hey, what are you doing
Yes,
here?"
yeah.
It's the
No,
same.
you're right.
It's the plot of the marvelous Miss Maisel.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. No, when I watch that, I think Michelle reminds me a little bit about Susie, but I can't say that to her.
Yeah.
So
Well, hey,
I hope she doesn't watch this.
Well,
Sorry, Michelle.
Alex Bornstein is
nobody
fabulous.
watches this. Nobody watches
And the
this. You don't
actress
have
is
to worry about
hilarious.
this.
So
Well,
it's
yeah.
meant as a compliment.
June, as you
It
well
is a
know,
Michelle, quit being so picky with your compliments.
Well, Michelle could definitely play that role, but Michelle would never speak the way that Susie speaks. She'd be like, "What do you mean that's me?"
right in spirit.
Yeah.
So, well, June, we end all of our episodes with a little segment we call Controlled Rowdiness. Now, these are a bunch of rapid-fire questions which you can answer with as short or as lengthy an answer as you would like. Expect nothing from us by way of response or reply. There are no right answers, but there are several wrong ones, so make sure you don't step any on those landmines. And Big Dan, I'm going to get you to get us kicked off.
Earlier, we discussed drunk history, so I'm curious. Drunk historying a Bible story.
Yeah, let's do it.
How would you drunk history the story of David and Goliath?
And go.
Oh, David and Goliath. Okay, so if I was to David and Goliath, I would be telling my kid, okay, so like there's this dude and he's like hanging out in a field and there's a giant and he's trying to kill everybody. And so this guy's like, hey, do we got anybody else? Because nobody there was wanting to go after this cat. So this itty bitty guy comes over and he's like, hey, I can do it. And they're like, what? They're like, you're 4 foot nothing. And he's like, that's okay. And then the king's like, here, wear my armor. And he puts it on him and he shrinks down, but he's like a weeble. He wobbled, but he didn't fall down. So he popped back up and he goes over and he takes a rock. He kills a giant. He takes his head off and they're like, yeah. And later we'll make him king.
That was amazing. And as you were telling that story, I was thinking of us acting that out.
Right. The thing is that
where are all the people?
by the end of it, David never takes the armor off at any point during the story, so he's still sort of teetering in Saul's armor, trying to throw the rock. I love it. I think.
Hey, don't be critical of her drunk history.
I'm
rendition.
just saying that's how we would play it out, as it would still be a little kid in armor. Yeah,
and like way too big armor.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Excellent.
So,
that is the way it would play out.
You said that you used to own a uniform company. What is the worst uniform you ever had to make?
Oh, the worst uniform I ever had to make. Okay, there wasn't a worst uniform, but I would warn the police officers that if they ever gave me a ticket, I was the one that controlled the length of their inseam, and if they didn't want their britches riding up under their body armor, that they better just leave me alone. So
Hey, you know what?
How did that work?
I never got a ticket. I never got pulled over.
Yeah, nice.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, what is Chonda Pierce's weakness? Because we would like to help you exploit it so that we can take her down as queen of clean, and put you in her place.
Oh my goodness. Oh, her weakness would probably be her dog, Murphy. It's the cutest little thing ever. And so, yeah, if anything ever happened to, that dog. So maybe if I held him for ransom or something, then she would let me be the queen or wear the crown for a little while.
We'll kidnap Murphy, and then you can use that in order to steal her power.
Okay, y'all don't say that because she really has so many followers, and people know her at the airport and stuff. And if something happened, that would be that. Okay, I'm lying. It's her cat Felix, and
he's a terrible and mischievous cat.
Well, maybe we can frame someone for stealing the dog, like Moody and his dog Mahakantani.
There's no way you're going to be able to say his.
Katani.
How sick should a mushroom make you?
Oh my goodness. I don't think the mushroom should make you sick. If you're eating those, it's probably not the kind of mushrooms that I'm hunting with my dad in the woods. So
okay,
don't do drugs, kids.
all right.
Ready for controlled rowdiness?
you just now got to that part in the thing. So June, aliens have landed. They've picked you up and they said, listen, we heard that you're the person we need to talk to. We need you to tell us a story that's so funny in the next 60 seconds that we decide not to destroy the earth. And go.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so Halloween is coming up, and my daddy Hotdog actually officiated a wedding between Batman and Catwoman, and Robin was the best man. And my mom called me and she was like, your daddy officiated a wedding and all the bridesmaids were in cat outfits. And I was like, Mom, you know that's not legal, right? That like dad can't actually do that. And she was like, is it not? And I was like, no, Mom, I don't think it is. And she goes, well, the best man kept falling asleep in his wheelchair and he woke up and he was mad because somebody stole his electric battery off his electric wheelchair. And I was like, during the wedding? And she goes, oh, no, it wasn't actually an electric wheelchair. This was just one we stole from the hospital.
That is so jam-packed full of information.
And you've still
questions.
got 20 seconds.
Yeah. Well, the good news is the aliens are definitely intrigued by this, and they have questions, and they're not going to destroy
they're not going to destroy the earth, but I don't know that they're letting you go. They're taking you in for further questioning.
Okay, and hold on. And they are going to make a precision hit on Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Yeah, so
did that hurt
my
your
head
brain?
hurts.
It's okay.
So Robin, the best man, is in a wheelchair that was stolen from the hospital?
Yes.
How did Robin get in? Does Robin still need a wheelchair? And did he ever find a battery or a normal wheelchair?
Also, Robin is Oracle in this setting.
Yeah. Oh, very nice nerdy joke.
Thank you.
That went into the deep Batman lore.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not sure whatever actually happened to Robin, but what happened to the couple? We're going to say different names for them, so we'll say Susie and Bob.
Sure.
So Susie and Bob are who my dad married, and my mom said, "Oh yeah, her family came in from Michigan to see, and I was like, so this was like a destination wedding in front of a burnt down house trailer. By the way, it was their old trailer burnt down, so my parents just put another trailer in front of the old trailer, so they were just on the porch where the burnt down trailer was the backdrop for this wedding.
They didn't just hang some flowers from it and made it a gazebo.
Well, they had mason jars with candles in it, and I think he had some Christmas lights, and they went dumpster diving, and they got one of those aluminum pool bars. You know what I'm talking about, where the aluminum just little bars you could set by the pool. That was the pulpit for the pastor, my dad.
Do you have pictures of this?
Oh, I wish I did. I don't. We've been going through a lot of stuff since my mom.
No joke. This is amazing.
Yeah. So a month later, my mom's like, "Well, Bob's mad at Susie," and I was like, "What's going on with Bob and Susie?" Because I love to talk to him, and she goes, "Well, he's upset. She's dating again."
What?
So did Dad just marry them? And Mom goes, well, like you said, I don't think it was legal.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That was my, when people are like, oh, your childhood was so crazy. I'm like, it hasn't gone away. Yeah, it's still happening.
Wow. I think that's good.
That's the best.
There's we're not going to be able to top that at all.
Yeah, I have like a MJ Designs Michaels comparison joke kind of, but it's
it's not. Maybe that's where Robin got his outfit, since we know he got his wheelchair from the hospital.
All superheroes buy their outfits from MJ Designs.
MJ Designs. This superhero outfit outlet, MJD.
And you can get flowers too.
Yeah, wow. To bring to the wedding.
What's your favorite, MJ Designs or Michaels?
We don't have an MJ.
You don't?
I don't think anybody has an MJ Designs anymore. I think Michaels bought them. Yeah.
We have Michaels.
Michaels are Hobby Lobby.
So Mr. Michael made Michaels. I don't know his last name.
Yeah.
And he sold Michaels and then started MJ Designs in direct competition. And I believe I don't know why we're talking about this, but
you are
in violation of the contract to sell.
Yeah.
He made a competing company, and then if he sold that to Michaels, that man is a genius. And
he did.
You should do that
Michaels
with your clothing business. You should bring it back, competing against the guy that bought your business, and make him buy it again. Double paid.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do
that. What do you think?
Yeah, there you go.
I believe that we could, because
this is a
it didn't go very
idea.
well. Yeah. It didn't go very well after that guy bought our company because he gave it to his children, and his children didn't do so well. So yeah, we actually do have people who are like, "Will you do it again?" And I'm like, "Never, not ever." I'm funny now, y'all. Leave me alone.
Well, Jude, tell our audience where it is that they can find your stuff online.
That's good.
All right, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at June Colson Comedy, and my website's JuneColsonComedy.com. And the Laugh Support Podcast you can find on all major podcast platforms. Plus, we are on the Creative Motion Network on Roku TV, Vimeo, and YouTube.
Nice. Well, links to all that stuff are going to be down in the show notes. June, thanks so much for coming on today. It's been an absolute blast.
Thanks, guys.
June freaking Colson. That was a lot of fun.
That was
great.
a lot of fun. She's awesome.
Yeah, she's very funny. I love her just sort of all shucks approach that like, nah, this is, people are like, oh, this is so funny. And she's just like, nah, this is my reality.
Yeah. I didn't realize. I mean, I guess I should have because your family stays with you.
Oh yeah,
for
for
as long
sure.
as they're going to, and typically they don't change that much.
No.
So the fact that these hilarious stories she has growing up are continuing today.
Yeah.
Checks out.
The wedding is.
I also have
that
some
might have been the
random
best
people
story of all the ones that she got to.
And she finished early.
Yeah.
You give her 60 seconds, she was done in 40.
Yeah, she was done at 40. We were like, okay.
And then there was 100 follow-up questions.
World saved. You're gone, but the earth was saved. June. Go ahead.
And I loved hearing about the Laugh Support Podcast. I think
it's very cool.
I'm interested in that because I like laughing too, and supporting each other, learning that trade or that craft is great. You know, it's one thing I really like about the podcast Kill Tony, which is not clean for the record, but it's hosted in Austin, which is a big blowing up
up and coming comedic scene.
Let's go with that. Up and coming comedic scene. Featuring local comedians or anyone who wants to come in for 60 seconds of comedy, which gives them a great opportunity to get featured. And so I'm very proud of June for putting a spotlight on that. Veteran comedians helping the up and coming is great. We need a lot more of that in the world.
Well, and so much of that, like that's the mentor model, but the mentor model comes from the discipleship model, right? And I'm not going to get into a whole theological thing, right?
Jesus.
Yeah, well, it's so much of everything that happens in the world
restart?
No. So, but the idea is that with the, what do they call it, the laugh support, is that not only do you understand that everybody had somebody that helped them along the way, which is like also sort of the thing that Gladwell shows in Outliers, is that everybody's got
Gladwell into it.
Everybody's got help somewhere along the way, but it gives you an opportunity to see how you can help people. When you hear the stories of people who have struggled or like what they've been through and how somebody spoke into that, we all know people that are struggling with something. And, it's not just hearing somebody's inspirational story about how they were able to be helped in order to become comedians, but also like what those people did that helped them out that was effective, I think is one of the most important things that we can garner from their podcast in particular, because so many people are out there struggling. It's the reason we're doing this podcast, is because not just we want to learn, we want to have time to hang out and have fun, but one of the things that you've always said is like what the world needs right now is laughter.
Yeah.
Like that's what's going to help us out. Well, in their show, not only are there a lot of laughs, but there's also insight into, hey, you know what? I also have a friend who's struggling with depression, or I also have a friend who's, dealing with these things, or who feels like the pressures of life, and this is what worked for that comedian. I wonder if I might be able to speak in that same way to somebody else's life.
Yeah.
It's very cool what they're doing. June, thanks so much for coming on the show. Dan, thanks for being here.
Whatever.
It was great. Shut
up.
To have you. Thanks for showing up. There's so much of life.
I've been watching a lot of Hodge twins. I go, man, shut up. Get out my ear.
So much of life is about availability. And availability, as the great philosopher Jerry Jones says, availability is one of the greatest abilities that a person can have. That's literally what he said when he was talking about Dak going down. Yep. So you guys, thank you very much. The Cowboys are going to suck again. Y'all have good year. And we'll see ya next week or some such. Everything out there is going on a lot more than this.
Thanks a lot for June Colson for coming. You're awesome.
Bye, y'all.
Hey, y'all. This is June Colson, Hotdog's daughter, famous comedian. And this is why you should never listen to the Reverend and Reprobate. They don't know the difference between a good mushroom and a bad.